Well, credit is in the news again. This morning, the Treasury talking about credit amnesty and their concerns about that. And now in the studio, we have Nao Lueto, who is Public Relations Manager for the Credit Ombud. Just that reminds us of the credit issues in South Africa, Nao. But before we talk about unfair credit practices, what are they? What do we define as unfair credit?
Look, David, when we look at unfair credit practice, it means anything that would go against, the well-being, the goodwill of the consumer in most cases, because they tend to be the victims. We're looking here at incorrect charges. If we're looking at issues such as your affordability assessments, have they been done correctly? Because obviously, if those are not done correctly, people might end up being over-indebted. You're looking here at additional costs in terms of credit. Are those charges correct? We're looking at issues such as your credit insurance, your admin fees, and so on and so forth. So all of those, the balance of those, have they been packaged correctly? Have they been put together in the best way possible for the consumer to enable them to stay afloat with their credit matters?
I'm happy that you touched on that. Would like to get into the South African Reserve Bank there, mentioning that the credit amnesty might result in the deletion of consumers' information and basically have adverse effects. What's your take on that particular view?
Look, Gugu, I mean, currently the three proposals that are on the table from the DTI and the NCR. The first one being, a total, complete removal of adverse information once off. The second one being you're looking at removing paid-up adverse information, and that will be on an ongoing basis. The third being removing paid-up judgments on an ongoing basis. So it's not a complete deletion of information. I think what people don't understand is that within your credit profile, you've got your payment profile, which will remain. So what is being removed will be adverse listings, but obviously that will have an impact on how lenders are actually able to extend to do their assessments before extending credit to consumers. So there will be an impact here.
Now, the first of those options sounds like the wrong one. Just delete all credit history so people can start again. I mean, then you're going to end up with people more indebted, surely. The others sound more reasonable. Has Treasury got it right, do you think?
Look, I think we need to see which one will end up. I mean, there are three proposals on the table. It could be that after the public hearings, which are currently going on, none of those three, might be there. So I think we wait. It's a wait and see game to see.
But how bad is it? I mean, you're exposed to this. You're the Ombud. That suggests that if people come to you, they need help in breaking through the bureaucracy, breaking through the system. How bad is the unfair credit practice?
Look, it is out there. It is bad. I mean, especially when we're looking at from a collection point of view, people being garnished. There's a lot of issues that are not correct in that space. You're looking at the handing over of debt collection. Sometimes people are being charged more than what they're supposed to be charged, at times double, what they defaulted at. So there are malpractices within that space.
And that brings us also to the issue of garnishee orders. Recently we saw the Marikana strikes as well as the shootings that took place there. It seems as though one of the influencing factors was the fact that these employees had so many garnishee orders against their names, hence they wanted the increase in their salaries. But is the Credit Ombud doing anything or working together with any other parties with regard to maybe overseeing the malpractices within the garnishee sector?
Yeah, our office has been heading up one of the task teams, the garnishee order task team that was put together in order to look into those practices. And where we are at the moment is that the task team has completed their work. They've given their recommendations over to the Department of Trade and Industry, and we await to see from that, what.
I think the problem with the garnishee orders is people think that companies are being horrible because people owe them money, but in fact, there is an initial default by the individual.
Yes.
So it's on the one hand, you don't want unfair practices, but these are people who have borrowed too much.
Of course, in the end, it is actually, when we look back at it, a consumer has defaulted and has not paid as they had agreed to. But David, I think what we need to be cognizant and look into is that it needs to be. Is the education there to consumers to say, this is what you can do? It takes us back to the affordability assessments. Were those conducted properly? I mean, some of the work that we've seen and complaints that we've seen coming through, where when we request those documents and look at affordability assessments that have been conducted, that somebody pays 20 Rand for transport fees. I mean, that's impossible. So those are some of the issues that goes there. It's the education to the consumer partnered with their responsibility.
Now, just before we wrap up, are you seeing a mixture of consumer education, maybe enough being done by the financial service providers themselves, together with the credit ombudsman, National Credit Regulator? Are we seeing enough synergies between these three parties?
Yeah, look, there's a lot of education going out there, and I think, as you are saying, if we are able to pull together and capitalize, there would be much greater impact, because a lot of people are doing education, but it's all scattered.
Just, you said the last question, but I've got another one. I think the point is that you need to cap the garnishee issues, don't you? And if they do cap the, say, 30% or 40% or 20% of a person's salary can go in garnishee orders, that's going to stop the guys lending so much. So surely that's the way to go.
Look, it would be one way of improving it. I mean, South Africa is the only country where there is no cap on how much of an individual's salary can be garnished. So, you know, if you put in those caps, at least, I mean, you find people going home with next to nothing. It will at least solve that problem, and if we put those measures in place.